HLN legal analyst and criminal defense attorney Joey Jackson and former prosecutor and criminal defense attorney Robert Bianchi join me now on the story. Good to have both of you here with us on this one. It is fascinating as we learn the details of not only what happened in that jury room, but where everybody's mind was. Joey, you and I talked a lot leading up to that mistrial about how these three charges felt really connected, and yet this jury didn't see it that way. Did it surprise you?
It did not. You know, it's interesting because the evidence could be whatever it is, but the way people perceive that evidence is just, you know, and jurors perceive it differently. It's amazing, and it never ceases to amaze. You know, there's a theory behind every prosecution and every defense, and it really says it's better to let 100 guilty people go free than to convict one innocent man. And predicated upon that is a system where you have to have 12 jurors reach a unanimous agreement. And we saw this jury, and even after 30 hours, they came back, Erica, and they said, "Judge, we're deadlocked." And apparently, according to this juror, when they went back, nobody changed after that, but they gave it a 20-hour try. And so therefore, God bless them.
You have to give him credit for sticking to it. The other thing that surprised me, and maybe this happens all the time, I don't know it, is this juror told ABC that when they all got in that room, before they started anything for deliberations, they took sort of an informal poll, and they basically, all 12 agreed at that point, not guilty on all three charges, Bob.
Yeah, I mean, this jury was clearly, and a lot like what Joey is saying, when you look at the questions they were asking, I do believe you can read into questions. What I read into that as a former prosecutor, I would have been like, yikes, I'm in some serious trouble here. They're asking for copious readback on the victim's testimony and on deposition testimony. They're asking for instructions on the law, and then the killer of all questions to a prosecutor, what is the definition of proof beyond a reasonable doubt? Now, this case is not going to get easier, and like Joey said, the 12-juror rule on proof beyond a reasonable doubt is to create an uneven playing field, so before you take somebody's liberty, you better have some really solid proof. And Erica, my biggest concern about this case, which I think, Joey, ultimately could result in a reversal in the next trial of a conviction, is the admission of the bad act evidence. The courts do not like that evidence, but for the most extraordinary circumstances, because the people can draw a conclusion that he has bad character. If he did this, he must have done that.
So what you're referring to there is the testimony of Kelly Johnson. So the prosecution has said, we want these 13 people to testify who said that they went through something similar with Bill Cosby. One was allowed in, but the prosecution said they're going to go back and retry the case. Won't they get the same judge?
Yeah, they will get the same judge. And the law of the case, Erica, because I've heard it out there, the two things I really disagree with strenuously. One was that his blinding celebrity led to this. That's nonsense. This jury worked. They worked hard. And I think that they were guided by facts, not celebrity, particularly when you look at the breakdown. And the other thing was, well, let's hope in the next trial that they allow more bad act evidence in. The law of the case, and this judge has concluded that one person, that's Miss Johnson, could testify. And based upon that, I don't see the judge changing that result at all. I do agree that it's an appealable issue. That's not the only appealable issue. I think allowing that deposition in is an appealable issue, and allowing that expert to testify is an appealable issue.
So
too.
One thing I want to toss to you, but before we let you both go, is that just after this mistrial was declared by the judge when the jury was deadlocked, Jean Casares spoke with Bill Cosby's attorney, who talked about it. Take a listen.
There are no winners here. We tried a case for a week. The jury deliberated for 50-some hours without a verdict. But, you know, as I've said many times before, as long as you can leave that courtroom with your client, presumed innocent as he began, then I'm satisfied.
Do you believe, though, that Bill Cosby drugged and assaulted women for decades?
I don't, because he swears to me he didn't.
If you're the defense and you know round two is coming up, what do you change?
I think the defense did what they needed to do. They didn't show any hand at all, I'd agree. They allowed a 6-minute witness to testify to remind that jury that there was a romantic relationship. She traveled, that is the accuser, from one state to another to meet with him. And I think the prosecution and the alternative showed all of their hands. So I think you keep poking at reasonable doubt and trying to get the same result or a better one. That is a hung jury or an acquittal.
And quickly, Bob, if you're the prosecution, if jurors will talk to you, what are you asking them? Because you want to know Why? Where did they fail in proving their case?
Well, you know, if to the extent that I could talk to them, they're going to tell me that it was that you didn't have the factual proof, and I believe that they're going to say that because of the subsequent conduct of her continuing to meet Mr. Cosby in places alone and under other circumstances was inconsistent with somebody who was a victim of rape. As the prosecutor, I agree with you. If they start to try to introduce additional bad character evidence, if I were the defense attorney right now, I may make a move interlocutory, Joey, go to the appellate court and say, you know what, that completely poisoned this jury. Otherwise, it would have been a not guilty, but they couldn't get past that testimony. If he did this, then he must have done that, which is exactly the reason they're not allowed to do that.
11-1. Unbelievable. I mean, based on the counts, but 10 conviction, 2 acquittal, 11.
Yeah.
It's, you know,
there's a lot
amazing.
there. One of the most interesting things to watch will be that jury selection for round 2. That's my non-lawyer 2 cents. Gentlemen, thank you as always.
Spoken like a true lawyer.
There you go.